Hey everybody, welcome to the Calitraveler podcast show. I'm your host, Paul. Once again, welcome to the Calitraveler podcast show. I'm your host, Paul. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Calitraveler podcast show. Last week we were discussing about owning a motorcycle in Thailand. This week, I decided to explain to you about owning a car in Thailand. Some of you have been asking me about purchasing a vehicle, particularly a car, here in Thailand, and the process to get a driver's license to drive a car. Well, I'll explain that to you in this episode. I usually drive a motorcycle. I don't have a car. But I did do some research for those of you who have asked me about cars. I'm also going to explain to you how to drive here in Thailand. So when I first came to Thailand, one of the biggest culture shocks was the fact that Thailand does not drive on the right like in the United States. Here in Thailand, they drive on the left like the British and like the UK and other Commonwealth countries. That was a big shock to me because I'd never driven on the left in my life. And the steering wheel on cars in the United States is on the left side of the car. But here in Thailand and in other left driving countries, the steering wheel is on the right side. Coming to Thailand, I had to learn how to drive. It felt like being a teenager and doing driver's ed all over again. I had to get used to sitting on the right side of the car, which in the US is the passenger side. And in that one, the right-handed cars are a little bit different. They're not too different, but I'll explain to you. So steering wheel obviously is on the right side. When you're shifting, you use your left hand instead of your right hand, like on cars in the United States. Now, the tricky part of driving a vehicle with the steering wheel on the right side is the windshield toggler and the turn signal on opposite sides. On cars with the steering wheel on the left side, you have the windshield switch, windshield wiper toggler on the right side of the steering wheel column, and the turn signal is on the left side of the steering wheel column. On vehicles that have the steering wheel on the right side, the turn signal is on the right side of the steering column and windshield on the left side of the steering column. That is one big thing that you need to pay attention to whenever you're driving a right-handed drive vehicle, because if you don't turn the turn signal on, you're bound to have an accident. I remember that almost happened to me because I toggled the windshield wipers instead of the turn signal. And I got used to driving on the left. And driving on the left, it's just like driving on the right back home. It's just things are a little bit opposite. But for instance, in the US, right turn has the right of way. However, in Thailand, the left lane for turning on the left has the right of way, always. When you're driving on the highway, you have the fast lane, the slow lane, and the middle lane. In the United States, the fast lane is the furthest left. Middle lane, still the middle. And your slow lane is on the right. However, driving on the left side of the road, it's different. Slow lane is on the furthest left, middle lane is in the middle, and fast lane is on the right. And in Thailand, they don't use miles like the United States, they use kilometers instead. So if you are trying to calculate your speed, better calculate it in kilometers because that's what they use in Thailand. As for owning a vehicle, it's pretty much the same process as getting a motorcycle. Again, I recommend getting something brand new. If not, obviously secondhand. If you're a foreigner, I recommend you bring a Thai friend with you, especially if you're looking at a secondhand car. That way, you know you're not being ripped off. But if you want to buy new, buy new. Now, an FYI to those of you who do want to buy brand new or secondhand and try to finance it, just know that as a foreigner, if you're here on a student visa, you cannot do that. You've got to have a work permit in order to be able to finance a car. If you want to pay with cash, no problem. You can buy the car, you can own the car. As for insurance obviously is going to be a little bit more pricier on cars as opposed to motorcycles because they're bigger. And the process is about the same. You have your tax stamp that you have to renew every single year, your insurance. As for the insurance, there are many different types of insurance. It can go anywhere from 650 baht, which would be around like maybe $15 a year, to anywhere around $200 a year, which would be about 6,000 baht. But that's, again, depending on the tier of coverage, because you have liability and then you have full coverage. Full coverage, I recommend if you are a expat living in Thailand, I recommend you get full coverage on the vehicle. So they have Type 1, Type 2 Plus, Type 2, Type 3 Plus, and Type 3. And Type 1 has the most extensive coverage. So Type 1 insurance has personal injury protection, property damage, collision, theft and robbery, medical treatment, and legal help. Type 2 Plus basically has everything that Type 1 has, with the exception of no partying involved. They don't cover that. And Type 2, it covers personal injury, property damage, fire, theft and robbery, and personal injury protection. And as you start to progress, Type 3 only covers the bare minimum. So I recommend, if you are going to purchase a car here, get Type 1 insurance, full coverage, because things can happen. Accidents do happen here, and you should always be prepared. As for the driver's license, it's the same process as getting a motorcycle. When I first got my car driver's license here in Thailand, all I had to do was take a written test. So what you're going to need to get your driver's license is you're going to need a certificate of residency from your embassy. You're going to need a medical certificate from a doctor stating that you're in good health to drive. You're going to need your original driver's license, my driver's license being American, and you're going to need copies of your passport and your receipt. You have copies of those, no problem. Then you have to do the same physical tests where they test your reflexes, just like the motorcycle. You have to take a written test and possibly take a road test. However, when I took my test, all I had to do was the written test. I didn't have to take a road test. And with all this being said, if you choose to drive a car, good idea. Just make sure that the air conditioner in your car works, because Thailand, it's always hot, so air conditioning is your best friend. Hopefully this information has helped you out. So I explained motorcycle last week, and now I can help you out with purchasing a car and getting a car driver's license. I hope you all are staying safe during this pandemic, maintain social distancing, and remember, whenever you go out, wear a mask. If it's not for you, at least do it for others. Take care. Podcast can be heard weekly on my YouTube channel, so subscribe to Calitraveler 93, as well as liking my Facebook page, Calitraveler 93, and the podcast will be available on Spotify and other platforms.